What's up, Renegades? I am Lupine Fiasco. This is your daily FaB gameplay, and today's game is against Viserai Runeblood. If you are new to the channel, welcome. What we do here is review replays of games that I've played on Talishar days or weeks ago. I will walk through turn cycles as if I were playing them now, while explaining the thought processes for the lines I would take. And we compare that to what I did in the past. We either learn from our mistakes or reinforce good play patterns. The goal is to optimize and tighten our gameplay in the future so that we walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. With all that said, let's take a look at our sideboard and game plan. Today's game features my Kodachi list. If you would like to review that deck list or try it out for yourself, you can find the deck list in the video description below. While you're down there, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Subscribing is the best free way to support me, and make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. We have lost the die roll. We have been chosen to go first. If it were up to us, we would want to go second in this matchup. Viserai is a bit more aggressive than his cousin Viserai, so we would like to take the opportunity to block with our opening hand, mitigate as much damage as we can, then draw up at the end of Viserai's turn. If Viserai wants to use turn 1 to set up a rune chant with Grasp of the Arknight, that's fine. He cannot really capitalize on a turn 0 like Viserai can, so we want to go second in this matchup, get the opportunity to attack Viserai's hand or life total in such a way that he cannot easily replenish those resources. This same mentality is why he has chosen us to go first, so this game is going to be a bit more difficult for us. Talking about our equipment, we are going to stay with our loadout here, our Kodachis, Mask of Momentum, Flamescale Furnace, Tiger Stripe Shuko, and Snapdragon Scalers. The really interesting call here is keeping our legs the same, not swapping over to Tide Flippers. Rune Chants can be scary. Viserai can certainly set up a lot of them and deal a lot of unpreventable damage, but our Kodachi lists run pretty low on blues. Those blues are better suited to dealing damage, pitching to pay for our Kodachis or our one-cost attacks or our Art of Wars. And we really don't want to spend offensive resources defending. Any of our cards are better suited to offense than defense, and if we do find ourselves in a position where we need to mitigate damage, we can just block. We don't need a special piece of equipment to help us mitigate life loss. That's something we can do the normal way. So we lose the ability to prevent arcane damage, but we keep the ability to get our Snatch and our Enlightened Strikes go again. That in itself is a huge buff. Spell Void 1, just not optimal against Viserai. Viserai, being an aggressive deck, does not necessitate the use of Fiendal Spring Tunic. We would rather mitigate life loss with the extra 3 points of armor that we get from Flamescale Furnace. And we want to capitalize on Viserai's limited defensive capabilities, chew through his armor very quickly with our Kodachis, then start getting cards from Viserai's hand if he wants to prevent Mask of Momentum triggers. Moving into the deck list itself, we are not going to swap anything out. All 60 cards in our deck are great for this matchup. We do not want to bring in non-blocks like Energy Potion. We don't need defense reactions to play around anything Viserai is going to do. He is not very disruptive, and any of his disruption that he could bring is something that we can block. And Command and Conquer is just generally bad against Rune Blades. A lot of them bring Crown of Providence. These games don't go long enough that we would get value out of the second Command and Conquer if we're assuming that the first Command and Conquer is going to eat a Crown of Providence. And if we're only being able to play one Command and Conquer at max in the average game, I'm really not excited about playing Brutal Assault in my deck. With all that said, we can check out the deck list and equipment package in action. So let's jump into the game and see how this all plays out. We are going first. So let's take a look at this hand and see how we want to play it out. We can go very wide here. 2 instances of Double Strike, 2 Harmonized Kodachis. We have the option to play a Brand with Cinderclaw if we wanted to play out our Lava Vein Loyalty. But as it is, I am just looking to leak a little bit of damage over Viserai's blocks and stick a Salt Wound in Arsenal. So this turn cycle is going to look something like Kodachi, Kodachi, Double Strike, Lava Vein Loyalty. We throw 5 attacks Viserai's way. Viserai probably blocks 3 of them, takes a couple points of damage, and we stick a Salt Wound in Arsenal for later. This being turn 0, Viserai is inclined to block a number of these attacks. There really isn't meaningful sequencing to be done here. We can throw our Kodachis first and follow with a Double Strike, just in case Viserai doesn't want to block the second Kodachi. But as you can see, Viserai is giving us cards from hand to mitigate damage. We are not going to trigger Mask of Momentum this turn, so let's not overthink it. We throw our damage, we set up an arsenal, and we pass. Throwing a Salt the Wound here instead of a Lava Vein Loyalty is an interesting line. I don't think it is right or wrong. Treating Lava Vein Loyalty like a head jab, assuming that we will draw a Draconic Starter in our next hand, and being able to add another link to our combat chain is probably correct. That said, this is a short enough matchup that if I arsenaled a Salt the Wound and drew a Lava Burst on my next turn, I would be happy to break my Snapdragon Scalers on turn 2. I want to get that value before the game ends, and these games do tend to go quickly. It is worth noting that our Viserai is on Crown of Providence instead of Crown of Dominion. We are not going to get comboed out by a cash-in, allowing for a big 5-card hand. So we can afford to play a bit of a slower game and expect Viserai to react to us rather than us necessarily needing to be proactive. This is a big setup turn from Viserai. He creates a number of rune chants, but overall is not throwing a ton of damage at us. Our hand plays pretty well. We can pitch our Salt the Wound, attack with our Kodachis, our Draconic cards, pick up a Phoenix Flame, force blocks from Viserai, and Arsenal and Enlighten Strike, so I am not inclined to block this Spellblade Assault. There is no on-hit. It already got the value from its play effect of creating rune chants. So we're just going to take our 2 here and look to play out our turn. What are we doing on our turn? Probably looking to pitch our Salt the Wound. If we sequence like Brand with Cinderclaw, Kodachi, Lava Vein Loyalty, that will force a block from Viserai. We either get a card from hand or we get 2 pieces of armor. We can follow that with Brand with Cinderclaw, Harmonized Kodachi, Phoenix Flame from discard. Fi's ability will be free. Phoenix Flame probably just gets armor from Viserai, and we get to Arsenal and Enlighten Strike. It isn't the most impactful turn, but we're just trying to chew through that armor. We set up a 5-card hand for our next turn, and we keep on the aggression. we can see that we are taking a bit of a different line here, leading with the Lava Vein Loyalty before our Blaze Headlong. This does give our Blaze Headlong go again. What we can do from here is follow Blaze Headlong with Phoenix Flame from discard. Viserai is unlikely to block it. We see a Reduce to Rune Chant from Viserai. That's going to clean up all of this Blaze Headlong damage. So we have a couple options here. We can pitch our Salt the Wound to Kadachi. We're about to activate 5 for free. So the 2 lines we have available to us are Kadachi, Phoenix Flame for 2, or Phoenix Flame for 2, Salt the Wound. I like Phoenix Flame Salt the Wound here. We are not threatening another mask trigger, but we're just dealing more damage. And if we Kadachi Phoenix Flame, Viserai has 2 pieces of block 2 temper / battle-worn armor. This really isn't forcing any concessions out of Viserai. He can easily clean up that damage. So we push a little more damage over the top here. I would like to draw with Mask Momentum, but I also just want to kill Viserai. Viserai deciding to block it out, play a little slower, likely looking to leverage that armor and that arcane damage to not burst us out necessarily, but play a bit of a slower, mid-rangey game, which thankfully is what we want to do because of our Mask Momentum. So Viserai is not taking us out of our comfort zone at all. What are we doing with this hand, knowing that we have an Enlightened Strike in Arsenal? Well, if we could turn this Enlightened Strike in our hand into a blue, this turn would really pop off. We would get to throw our Enlightened Strike, our Mounting Anger, both Draconic Head Jabs, 2 Kadachis, and a Phoenix Flame. That's putting 7 links on the chain, threatening quite a bit of damage, and threatening Mask Momentum triggers. Knowing that this is a short matchup, and that we do want to get early value from our Snapdragon Scalers to take and hopefully keep the tempo, I'm going to start with an Enlightened Strike from Arsenal, bottoming Enlightened Strike from hand to draw a card and give that Enlightened Strike go again. And I'm really hoping for a blue so that I can set up this turn that I had described. So step 1 is throw the Enlightened Strike, see what we draw, set up our turn from there, knowing that we want a blue. But not this blue. Warmonger's Diplomacy is an incredibly high-value card in this matchup, probably more than in any other matchup, because it just turns off Viserai. Viserai's hero power needs him to play a non-attack action, then follow it with attack actions to push damage, get Rune Chant effects, and really just set up these powerful turns. But if we turn off half of Viserai's deck, either through him choosing War and not being able to play non-attacks, or him choosing Peace and not being able to play attacks, we are killing a ton of momentum. So all of this is to say, we are not looking to pitch Warmonger's Diplomacy. We want to play it. So what we're going to do instead is play Ronin Renegade, then play Rising Resentment. If the Rising Resentment hits, we will banish our Mounting Anger, get to play it for free, and follow up with a Phoenix Flame. If the Rising Resentment gets blocked, then we will pitch our Mounting Anger to 5, pick up and play our Phoenix Flame, and arsenal our Warmonger's Diplomacy. And the reason we would want to arsenal it rather than play it is Viserai is blocking all of this damage. Viserai has 1 card in Arsenal and no cards in hand. This Warmonger's Diplomacy really does nothing for us. If we play it here, Viserai doesn't have a turn anyway. So we just want to arsenal it and save it. And we're going to use the mentality that I had demonstrated in my Bolton video from last week, where we arsenal a combo breaker and save it for when Viserai very clearly doesn't want to block, for when Viserai is very clearly setting up a big turn. Here we are going to lead with our Art of War, and we're going to banish our Snatch. And the reason we're banishing Snatch is that we don't have our Snapdragon Scalers. So if we treat Snatch like a finisher, and we drew another finisher from Art of War, then we have a very clunky turn. So we'll start with Art of War here, we'll banish Snatch, see what our cards are, then shape our turn. We're doing this before we play our Ravenous Rabble, just because we want to make sure that we aren't setting ourselves up for failure. We aren't playing Ravenous Rabble, having it hit, then drawing a non-attack action that we would want to play that breaks the chain. This list is not running Rise from the Ashes, we are running Soaring Strike, so there aren't really any cards that could break up our chain. But let's get into best practices. Let's lead with our Art of Wars when we aren't pushing specific on-hits. We play it first, we shape our turn. Here we have our blue Brand with Cinderclaw. That is going to put a second Draconic Link on our chain, so Phoenix Flame does come online. How can we sequence this? We can start the turn with Brand of Cinderclaw, follow that with a Kodachi, then attack with Ravenous Rabble to hopefully present a pretty good breakpoint. We'll have a floating resource so we can pick up and play our Phoenix Flame, which is going to get the Art of War and the Tiger Stripe Shuko buff. And based on how Viserai blocks any, all, or none of this damage, we can finish the turn with either a Warmonger's Diplomacy or a Snatch. If Viserai does a lot of blocking, we know that he is fine to sacrifice his hand, take the turn off, and we're just going to push a little damage with Snatch. If Viserai tries to keep a number of cards in hand, then we will play our Warmonger's Diplomacy and take advantage of the fact that he is clearly setting up for something powerful, took way more damage than he wanted to, and now he doesn't get to do any of it. Ravenous Rabble coming in for 5 here is very good for us as it gets all of Viserai's armor, including the creepers, and noting that Viserai wants to keep a 5-card hand, we are going to play our Warmonger's Diplomacy and arsenal our Snatch. Viserai chooses War. He gets to come in with a Go Again attack, triggering all of his rune chants, so still pushing a good amount of damage on this turn. Warmonger's Diplomacy certainly did not end the game by any means, but Viserai keeps 2 cards in hand, 1 card in arsenal. Those 2 cards in hand could have gone to blocks, so Viserai definitely did want to keep them. Let's advance the turn just a bit. We see that we have another Warmonger's Diplomacy in hand, but because we are under the effect of our own Warmonger's Diplomacy, and specifically War, we can't play it this turn. So we find ourselves in another situation where we have a Snatch and a Warmonger's Diplomacy. Both are finishers, but unlike last turn, only the Snatch is playable here, so it makes our decision quite a bit easier. We're going to pitch this Lava Burst for a Kodachi. I would like to note that this Lava Burst is worth 3 points on defense and only 1 point on offense, since we're pitching it to this Kodachi. We would have been better served blocking the Swarming Gloomveil last turn with this Lava Burst, rather than keeping it to pitch for the Kodachi. There's an argument that we attack with Kodachi, Rising Resentment, trigger Mask of Momentum with an action point available in case we draw a finisher. I think Viserai is inclined to block here. I think it is 100% a mistake that we didn't block with this Lava Burst. I'll admit that I tunnel visioned the Viserai's life total. Yes, it's an aggro matchup. Yes, we are racing, but we get more value out of this Lava Burst on defense than on offense. we should have blocked with it. Put that out of the way, we are attacking with our Kodachi. We'll follow up with 2 Rising Resentments and see what we get out of Viserai on blocks. Getting Mordred Tide feels pretty good. We follow this with another Rising Resentment. Hopefully Viserai blocks it, thinking that we might be able to use the on-hit effect, but he doesn't and we don't. So we follow with a Snatch. And I'm surprised Viserai is blocking this so aggressively because we don't have Go again, and we have no floating action point for a Razor Reflex. Viserai coming in with another Spellblade Assault. Again, there is no on-hit here. The Spellblade Assault doesn't have Go again. Viserai does not have a way to generate an action point. So this is the end of the turn. But I still want to block here and mitigate a little damage. Generally, blocking against Runeblade means using your armor for blocks earlier than you think you should, earlier than you would in other matchups, to make sure that you don't randomly die to arcane damage that you can't prevent. We're at 22. If we didn't block the Spellblade Assault, we would go to 18. So we aren't in any immediate danger of dying. Maybe we should have kept our Flamescale Furnace available to block a Consuming Volition with Furnace and another piece of equipment. But mitigating this damage here is fine, is general best practices. And we're really going to start stripping Viserai's hand, noting that he has no armor value left to use on defense. So if we can push the offense here, we likely don't need to worry about any massive surprise arcane damage out of nowhere. So we block the Spellblade Assault and we come back to our turn. We have our Warmonger's Diplomacy in Arsenal, so we can throw some attacks at Viserai, see what he does or doesn't block, then decide whether we want to end our turn with Warmonger's Diplomacy or with Salt the Wound. With the hand we have, we can attack 4 times. Our blue pays for Mounting Anger, 2 Kodachis, and Blaze Headlong. Because we can attack 4 times, we want to start our chain with Mounting Anger. Mounting Anger is generally a must-block attack. 1 for 5 is a rate that no one wants FaB to have. So if we get 2 cards from Viserai on defense, then follow that with Kodachi, Blaze Headlong, Viserai very likely needs to give us 2 more cards to stop the hit trigger on Blaze Headlong that would draw us a card. So let's do that. Rather than sequence 1144, we're going to sequence 4114. If this Mounting Anger hits, great, we'll banish Blaze Headlong. We will follow Mounting Anger with a Kodachi and then the Blaze. And that's exactly what's happening. Viserai setting up for a 5-card hand, assuming that 23 points of life will be enough to keep him in this game long enough to kill us. We trigger Mask Momentum with Blaze Headlong, drawing into another Blaze Headlong, which is just great news for us. It puts a 3rd Draconic Link on the chain, so we can attack with this Kodachi and pick up our Phoenix Flame. Phoenix Flame is the first half of Tiger Stripe Shuko. So with Viserai letting this hit, we have a choice to make. And that choice is, are we ending this turn with Warmonger's Diplomacy or Salt the Wound? Warmonger's Diplomacy shuts down Viserai's turn. Whatever Viserai had planning, there is no way that he can deal 20 damage to us, even 25 effectively with all of our armor, with either just actions or just non-attack actions. But Salt the Wound here does 9 points of damage. It gets the 6 hits from our earlier attack, plus 1 point of damage from Tiger Stripe Shuko. That puts Viserai to 1. with attack actions and non-attack actions. Viserai has 4 cards and we're at 25. I don't think he can kill us. And if we put Viserai to 1, that puts him in Kodachi lock. He is going to need to dedicate so many cards to not dying that this really is his last turn of the game, one way or the other. We don't have Snapdragon Scalers. It will be hard to play out 2 finishers in a turn. So let's play out our Salt the Wound here, push a lot of damage, and see how Viserai deals with that. Either Viserai goes to 1 and probably loses the game, or spends his entire hand stopping our Salt the Wound damage, effectively Warmonger's Diplomacying himself, and puts us in a position to win the game here. We draw into our 3rd Warmonger's Diplomacy, which really just isn't helpful, considering that we have one in Arsenal, so we're going to look to pitch this instead. Starting our turn with Soaring Strike here is either going to get multiple blocks out of Viserai, or Soaring Strike hits, we get to banish our Lava Burst to give it go again. Then we can follow up with a Phoenix Flame, or a Soul Bead Strike, or a Warmonger's Diplomacy, depending on what Viserai does. We're pitching our Warmongers to play our Soaring Strike, and looking at our turn from there. Choosing here to pitch Soul Bead Strike is an interesting decision. I don't think it matters, considering how far ahead in this game we are. Soul Bead Strike does not hit, so we do not get to give our Lava Burst go again. What that means is we're going to pitch our Warmonger's Diplomacy to FaB. We're going to pick up and play our Phoenix Flame. Phoenix Flame here, threatening a Mask trigger. Viserai packs it in instead, gives us the good game, and concedes. This was a very fun game for me to play out. It is very rewarding that I can look at something I talked about last week against Bolton, holding these combo breakers and preparing for when Bolton is not going to block, is very clearly looking to set up a big turn, and being able to look at Viserai and say, he's going to do the same thing. And that's exactly what we saw. We throw out a big damage turn. Viserai says, here's my armor, here's all my defense, I'm going to crack back, and we get to say, cool. Not only did you take unnecessary damage, but you don't get to do anything on your turn. And then we got to set it up again, where Viserai takes this Phoenix Flame damage, gives us the card draw, tries to keep 3 cards to kill us on the crackback. We have another Warmonger's Diplomacy set up. It's very rewarding to me that this whole process of making videos, commentating my games to learn from experience is actually working. And I hope that all of you got something out of it as well. This is the first Viserai game on my channel. I was happy to be able to bring it to you. I hope you all learned something. We are approaching ProQuest this weekend. If you are bringing FaB, then I'm hoping to give you just a last bit of experience leading up to the event. I hope you all enjoy this game. I hope that I will see you all throughout the week. If you have any questions or feedback from me, you can leave it in the comment section below. If you found this video helpful, if you enjoyed the game, or if you just like hearing the dulcet sounds of my voice, smash that like button, and I will see you back here tomorrow for more daily FaB gameplay. Take care.